Number 17 starts the Unit 7 portion of the review. So here the vertex is just your highest or your lowest point of the graph. So here is our lowest point. So that would be, here's 0, 1, 2, 3, down 1. So 3, negative 1. C it is. For number 18, the roots are where does the parabola cross the x-axis. So we have learned to write this as 2, 0 and 4, 0. You can see this written as 2 and 4, x equals 2, comma 4, x equals 2 and 4. You just can't put parentheses around the 2 and 4 when you write x equals. So either of these are completely acceptable. I think on the final you will see it written maybe this way, but I know that it's written different. You're able to write it different ways. Okay, so we can just write it here. For this purposes, we would use C, 2, 0, 4, 0. Okay, so 19, we have to match which one of these graphs represents this. Before I do the math, I know it cannot be A or C. Okay, if you remember way back in the notes, if A was a positive number, the parabola has to open up. So it has to be one of these. But how do we find our vertex? So what I did is I wrote this out on a little piece of paper to help, just because we don't have a lot of space. So first, we got to label A, B, and C. Okay? There's a little bit of glare on that positive 2. Let me turn this light off, see if that helps a little bit. Okay, so now, if I plug the B, which is 2, into negative B, I've got negative 2 over 2 times A is 1. So now I've got negative 2, 2 times 1 is 2, and this divides to be negative 1. That is your x. So my vertex would be negative 1 something. Now, you have to plug this in to both x's. And if you've got a number in front of the x, you always put parentheses. So I would have y equals negative 1 squared plus 2 times negative 1 with a minus 1 at the end. Okay, now, negative 1 squared, and the calculator tells you the wrong answer. We've talked about this before, so I would say, what is negative 1 times negative 1? 1. 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. And then I just bring down the other minus 1. So 1 minus 2 is negative 1. Bring this minus 1 down. And negative 1 minus 1 is negative 2. So negative 2 is my other value coordinate here. So I'm looking for negative 1, negative 2. So I've got here 0. So negative 1, negative 2. Okay, that looks good. Here, negative 1, negative 2. Okay, obviously that is not my vertex. So it has to be B. But the other thing we learned was that when we graph a parabola, we use a pattern of 1, 3, 5. And you have to multiply that by A. So if I multiply these by 1, I get the same pattern. So from that vertex, if I go up 1 over 1, do I land on the parabola? Yes. If I go up 3 over 1, I still land on the parabola. So I know it's definitely B. Okay. All right. For number 20, we have to solve, and this is by finding square roots. So what you do is you solve this like an equation. So 1, can you add or subtract something? Yes, we can subtract 21. If I subtract that, I get 100. then can I divide by a number in front of x squared? No, it's just a 1. So 100 divided by 1 would still be 100. So then step 2 says take the square root of both sides. And we would get 10. But we have to put plus or minus in our answer. And so this would look like C. And remember, you can write your answer as 10 and negative 10 like this, or plus or minus 10. Okay? In the computer system, it's pretty easy to write it like this, but this symbol is harder to do. Okay, number 21, it says to solve. This one, remember, you are factoring and solving. So I'm going to use x factor. So 1 times 7 is 7. And I'm trying to get to the middle number, 8. Well, if I look at my factor sheet, 7 is only 1 and 7. Can that make 8? Yeah. So I would say, okay, the factors are x plus 1 and x plus 7 equals 0. Set each one of these sections or set of parentheses to 0 and solve it. So if I subtract 1, 0 minus 1 is negative 1. Okay? It's got to be negative 1. Here I subtract 7. 0 minus 7 is negative 7. Negative 1, negative 7. C again. Number 22 is actually just like 21. It's just written differently. It says find the x-intercepts of the graph of the equation. That's what you're doing. You're finding the x-intercepts or the x values. So right here, I'm just going to use x factor again and go 1 times 12 is 12. And we're trying to get to negative 7. You also have to remember, like if you see that y equals, when you're solving it, you're making that 0. Okay, 12. Factors of 12. So which one of these can make a negative 7? Only 3 and 4 by adding them. So how did you get negative, right? They both have to be negative. Negative times negative is a positive. If I add 2 negatives, I keep the negative. So I would have x minus 3, x minus 4, and again that equals 0. And then you're just setting them equal to 0 and solving them. So x minus 3 equals 0, x minus 4 equals 0, and we're just solving. So I add 3, 0 plus 3 is 3, add 4, and x would just be 4. So I'm looking for 3 and 4. So C. Okay, number 23, we have the quadratic formula. Okay, so the quadratic formula is this, okay? 2 reasons why I know I'm using this, okay? One, if I tried to solve this by doing like first times last, setting up x factor, I'm going to do that for you. 4 times negative 3 is negative 12, and I got to get to negative 5. Hopefully you would see, when you look at the factors, none of these can make 5 or negative 5 at all. So if I can't solve this, I can't factor. I have to use this formula. So 1, I want to go ahead and label A, B, and C. Okay, I like this part because this helps you figure out your answer, honestly. If I see that B is a negative 5, and there's a negative here in the formula, I have that negative. Then I bring down this negative 5, and I see that I have a double negative. Well, a double negative makes a positive. So this means that no matter what, this answer and this answer are out. I can't use them. I have to have a positive 5 first. So that's out. Okay? So then I'm going to plug in some more. So I've got square root of negative 5, or sorry, b squared, so negative 5 squared. Then minus 4. And we discussed that when you do the a and the c, you put parentheses around it. So times 4 times negative 3. And then lastly, 2 times a is 2 times 4. Okay. So now I have that positive 5. We know 2 times 4 is going to be 8. Now, negative 5 squared is negative times negative. Negative 5 times negative 5 is 25. Okay, for the other part there, we have negative 4. So I have a negative 4 times negative 3, and that's 48. Okay, then 25 plus 48 is 73. 73 cannot be divided by 2. If you try to divide by 3, you get a decimal. If you keep trying, you get decimals. So we can't divide that. So I can't simplify the radical by doing a factor tree. So this is my final solution. And it looks like to me that would be letter B. Then we have 2 more problems down here. So for number 24, for this one, we're just figuring out the square root. So the square root of 64 is a perfect square. That's 8. And then here, if we had 40 x's listed out, okay, how many pairs of x's would you have? Well, that's taking half of 40. So that'd be x to the 20th. That would be D. Okay, for 25, obviously do the easiest part first. So the square root of 9 is 3. But 12 comes out as a decimal, so I need to break that down. So I have 3 and 4, 2 and 2. So at the end of my branches, I have 2, 2, 3. With a pair of 2's. So 2 on the outside, a leftover 3 on the inside. I can't simplify these because that's in a radical and that is not in a radical. 2 and 3 can't reduce, so this is my answer. So this would match to C. Alright, so that's the end of the final exam review. It's only 25 questions. You will be taking the final exam in Google Classroom this time, and it is the last thing that you have to do for algebra this school year. So make sure you have written everything down, you've practiced, you have everything ready to go. It's nice and neat, like in order, and good luck.